Right, so here we have the nasal cavity. Here's your three concha, superior, middle, inferior. Here's your nostril, known as the external nair. It's the nostril. The air comes in the external nair and it enters into the cavity. Before it gets into the main cavity, it goes through the vestibule, just like you would in your home, right? Your big McMansions. You go in the door, into the vestibule, past the fountain, right? The tropical plants, and then you enter into the big great hall, the nasal cavity. That's where the maid greets you and takes your coat. And then the air swirls around, and then it's going to leave the nasal cavity via the internal nair. So the opening going in, the opening now that we're leaving is called the nair. And it's the opening, meaning it's the opening, the passageway is called the internal nair. It's not a structure, it's not like something sticking off of the bone or something of that nature. It's the opening. Just like the nostril, the opening, and then the opening at the back of the cavity, and the air leaves the nasal cavity, now is going to proceed down the tubular passageway to the lung. Internal nair is the opening there, and that begins the pharynx. Here's where the pharynx begins, and here's where the pharynx ends. Begins and ends. Say it again. Begins and ends. And you told me we're doing digestive systems today.
I know, I'm sorry.
And it's broken into three sections, the pharynx, you'd be happy to know. It's broken into the nasopharynx because it's behind the nose, naso, nose, the oropharynx, because it's behind the oro, the mouth, and the laryngopharynx because it's behind the larynx. Here's your larynx, this part over here. What other things do we have in this picture that you remember from the old days? The hard palate of the maxilla, the teeth, the lips, the mandible, the tongue, right? And along this passageway, as you're moving through the pharynx, you've got a couple of lymphatic organs or tissues in there, right? Like what? Tonsils, right? So here we have our palatine tonsil, behind the tongue, the lingual tonsil, and up here in the back, the beginning of the pharynx, the pharyngeal tonsil. So you didn't get those on the last exam, did you? Well, maybe you will on the next exam. Maybe. Or maybe just a slide of the pharynx, and a slide of the tongue.